When you first get to Nashville, were you living on a prayer in terms of, like, were you just like, hey, I'm gonna get out there and I'm just gonna figure it out as I go, bootstrap this thing and figure it out?
Yeah, pretty much. I had a couple connections out here with some very talented folks, and I ran into an old friend. That's kind of how I got that first gig. I was third day, fourth night in town, and it was just, I knew the deal. You had to walk around and try to sit in with bands and, get your name out there. I mean, literally starting from the very grassroots, So,
yeah.
So I walked in and they were like, "Oh, you're that dude from Virginia. What's your name again?" I was like, "Ross Flora." And like, "Yeah, well, I'm from just south of there." They're like, "We're actually looking for a lead player right now. Our guy just went on tour with Pre-Major Act." So
nice.
They were like, "Can you start in a week and a half?" And gave me a song list of 130 songs. They were like, "Here, learn these and by next week and we'll rehearse." And I was like, "Okay." So I went home and woodshedded. Yeah. So it was, but
you said you've been playing since you were 11. So did you jump into a lot of like technical training and stuff when it came to guitar, or was it just kind of like, hey, I'm going to learn this by ear, by tabs? Like, what was the process?
So I could play piano beforehand. I started playing piano when I was 7. That was kind of a deal. My dad's an awesome musician. He plays a lot of everything. He does great guitar, great bass. He was a keyboard player mainly through the 80s and stuff with some big bands.
Yeah.
But so he was, he knew the deal, and that's how I highly recommend that to musicians out there, aspiring musicians, is learn piano. That's going to help you out a ton because it basically puts all your notes on a graph. So everything else helps make sense, So I did have some music theory background with that. And then from there, my dad taught me up until for my first few years. He was just kind of, he was getting me through my Southern rock phase. I'm a big Allman Brothers fanatic, and he is.
Yeah.
That's where I get that,
I can hear that in the music. I love it.
Oh yeah. Nice. Well, yeah. So, and then he came home from work one day and I had the Van Halen. It was probably just a greatest hits album, but I just found it at Walmart, on the way home from school with Mom. And I was like, I've heard of this guy. I want to see what this is about. And I've heard him on the radio. I was like, I really want to dive into this. So,
yeah.
So he came home and he instantly called the music shop in Roanoke, Kelly's Music, and he was like, all right. He was like, it's time. He was like, get him in with some lessons here now. So, and then from there, I had some amazing teachers, Freddie Lewis and Brian Holt. So they definitely got me on into the Van Halen style of things, and then like kind of the Yngwie Malmsteen, the shred, just playing way too fast shredder stuff.
Yeah.
And then so I kind of came full circle, and then I was like, yeah, you know what, I unless I'm gonna go the metal route, this is kind of, I need to jump back and get more into the Allman Brothers kind of soulful playing, and I feel like that's gonna lend itself a little more to different styles of playing. So.
And you get into town, you meet these guys. You're like, hey, learn these 130 songs, which sounds insane to me. That's so many songs.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Was it just like, hey, we do cover sets and we're playing 4 hours, 6 hours? Like, how long? Like 130 songs. That's quite a lot of songs.
Yeah, that's the pool of songs, So it's like, all right, this is, we can usually downtown we're fitting in about 15 or 16 songs an hour. So, you're thinking, give or take, yeah. So, you're thinking 3.5 minute songs, and then, you want to just keep them going, so you're moving through them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like 80 songs or so in 4 hours and stuff. So, but they gave me the whole song list. And it was, Lindsay and Alicia did. And it was like, I was like, oh, okay. It's like, well, this is all right. I'm in it now. So I went back to Virginia. I was like, I don't need any like distractions here. I don't need this new pool, that's outside my apartment complex. Like, I need to be in the basement of my house, wood shedding for 12 hours a day for this entire week to get this down. Because a lot of it was a girl band, Smoking Guns, Lindsay and Alicia, and they, so it was, I had not played with many female artists. So most of the songs I'd heard, Bonnie Raitt, Heart, all that kind of stuff I'd heard, but I'd never had a reason to learn it in a professional like learn it through and through. So that made it made it that much more challenging. Because I was like, oh, okay.
And when you're practicing these, like, do they? I'm assuming that there's a pretty consistent. Hey, these are the beats per minute we play at. This is like, so that way when you kind of come and try and assimilate into the band and actually like join them,
Mm-hmm.
you're already kind of in the same cadence, right? Were you just kind of just like, hey, I've got to just learn the structure of it and then we'll kind of piece it together once we get together?
Yeah, I had a lot of cheat sheets just so like I knew how to write out. They were bad charts. I look back on them now. I'm like, oh, how did I ever read these? But just, Nashville number charts, just real easy to look at and just kind of figure out your way through a song and road map it. But they were the kind of band that really didn't want you looking at charts. So I only had like one weekend of that where I could look at those, and it was like they had to be rote memorized. But that's a skill you develop on top of anything else. I mean, that's my friend Doug told me that week. He was, he's like, here, this is your bass player. He was like me, he was like, it's like, you ever done this? He said, you ever learned this many songs before? I was like, I haven't. I've learned, a handful at a time for a gig or something. But he was like, it's its own skill set to be able to remember the feels of the songs, even when it's that much in that short of a time. It certainly is. I mean, that's its own skill set. It helps in writing songs as well. It helps in, any type of learning. The more you learn, the easier learning becomes. I feel like that was something I learned in the Shakespeare class, so.
Yeah. When you were jumping in and learning these songs, like, I feel like there's so many things that can go wrong. So what was like the easiest part of learning that many songs, and what was the most difficult part? Like that whole spectrum.
So the hardest thing was finding something that you could latch on to make yourself remember the whole groove of the song. So it's like, okay. Once you can, I always say, once you can hear it in your head and get through that, then you're 90% there. If you've memorized the chords, like, if the chords are there, it just being able to know in a split second, like they're like, all right, play Barracuda. And it's like, well, that's an easy one because that's an iconic riff. But I remember, I think it was, what's that song Miranda Lambert does? That's a da-da-da-da-da, Kerosene. I remember right at my only cheat notes on that were I've given up on love, love's given up on me. Because I can remember the hook of the song, and I'd be like, okay, once I remember that, I'll remember how the riff goes, and then it's in D, and then it goes to that. Okay, yeah, it's in this and that. Man. So then it just snaps. You just gotta have that one little piece that kind of helps you remember it. And sometimes it's a certain little piece of chart, and sometimes it's just the hook or the first couple words of the song written out, so that you can instantly be like, "Giving up on love," and then 1, 2, 3, and jump right in. And then so that's cool.
Dang. I mean, like I said, that's intense, man. Because you're having to remember. You're not just having to remember that hook. You're having to remember that hook for each of the songs.
Mm-hmm.
And you're having to, like, you've got to have like this. Obviously, like your friend said, it's a skill in and of itself. Just like that's genuinely probably one of the most impressive skills that I've ever heard of. Like, because there's a few things I've heard of, like, studio musicians. They're like, hey, come up with a guitar part that goes along with this, or like you're in your position, hey, live performance, I need you to have all these songs ready to go, memorized, and set list and stuff changes, so you just need to know them all regardless and just be ready.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those are such unique skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
When you were like going through all of this and figuring all these things out, was that part of that learning it on the fly, or did you already have, like, because you said you've only learned a few songs at a time prior to this, like, what prepared you for it? How did you actually figure it out?
I did play in bands back in Virginia growing up, and then when I started playing professionally, and we didn't have set lists. It was all, I played in a 10-piece horn band, we played like 70s, 80s funk stuff. That's really cool. That's one of my favorite genres, side note. But they so we'd all go depending on the crowd. And so we had a band leader, he always knew where, you know, he was decades of experience doing it. He'd be like, all right, I see. All right, we need to hit this song now. Is so we. I was lucky that I was used to the band leaders calling audibles, you know, so
Yeah.
no determined set list, just a song pool. And then, so you had to be able to hit them all on the fly. So that was kind of nice. And so that was kind of all the bands I played in back home were a lot like that. You had to have quick changeovers. You had to be right on it, you know, so that really helped me out, you know, instead of just having like a predetermined list where you're thinking, where you know the next song before you're done with this one. And,
Yeah.
you know, or the one you're on. So that was,
and you were just ready to go. Like that's intense. And what was the easiest part when you're like learning these songs? Like, what was the thing that was like, all right, this is because I'd imagine, again, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd imagine like, you know, you're woodshedding for that week and a half. You're like, I've got to just focus. I got to hunker down and figure this out.
Yeah.
There's got to be something that keeps you motivated. Something that was like, this is easy. This is good. I'm ready to roll because of this thing helped me to keep going type thing.
Oh, I mean, it's just that my first gig was going to be Friday night, a 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. shift at a nice club at Whiskey Vent Saloon downtown. You know, it's still there. And so it's still a rocking club. And I was like, whoa, I jumped a couple, you know, steps here for my second week in town to be doing this. But I realized, I was like, all right, you've been handed this. You know,
yeah,
you got it. But, you know, sometimes people have to wait a little bit longer to get in their first band. So I was like, man, get it rolling and respect it. So.